You guys remember 9 months ago when I was walking outside the tool shed in California and I said this? F it, let's do another Premier League preview. Well, that preview was about the Premier League, so now it's time to see how many I got right, if only to show off my genius once again. First up, Middlesbrough. 12 short months ago, manager Aitor Karanka and Borough were beaten in the playoff final by Norwich 2-0. 10 months after that, they dealt with that heartbreaking loss and the failure that's attached to it with grit and determination, and they automatically qualified for promotion by getting second in the championship. So this core of players knows how to deal with adversity, which is a huge asset. And then you added new signings Alvaro Negredo, Martin Darun, Victor Fisher, and 2 new goalkeepers in Victor Valdez and my boy Brad Guzan, and they are definitely staying up. 15th. You know, I really wanted to get the first one right to set the tone, you know, about how this whole thing's gonna go. And of course, I missed it. They didn't stay up. They went straight back down from where they came from, which is what happens when you only score 27 goals in a 38-game season, which is embarrassing. Next up, the Hull City Tigers. No manager, no signings, and no buyers of the club from the current crazy-ass owners that are actively trying to sell can only mean one thing: no hope. So have fun in the championship next season, fellas, and tell Newcastle I said hi when you get back down there, because they're shite too. 20th. Yes, I nailed it. Not that it was hard, because we always knew they were going to struggle, as evidenced by them only winning back-to-back league games twice all season, so they could never get a good run going. Also, that was a completely unnecessary dig at Newcastle, who ended up turning my frown upside down by winning the championship. And who do we have here? Manchester City. The high-pressing, possession-based era of Pep Guardiola has begun. But does he have the players to carry out his orders? I think his very talented attackers like Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, and new signing Leroy Sané have the desire to win the ball higher up the field, because in some ways that'll make their job easier, but that won't mask the issues that they have on defense for a whole season. English record signing John Stones is coming off a very average year. Captain Vincent Kompany is always hurt, and Nicolas Otamendi doesn't seem to have the passing ability that Pep craves from his center backs, so I think that's going to cost them at some point, as will some Joe Hart mistakes. Second. Wait. What? I pretty much slammed City throughout my preview, and I still give them second? It just doesn't make any sense, unless there was some fumes swirling around that had me believing that Pep Guardiola was still one of the best managers in the world at that time, because now I'm not so sure. I mean, I think he's really, really good, of course, but he inherited a great Barcelona team that had Xavi and Iniesta and Puyol in their primes. They were so important to the spine of the team back in that era, and they had a lot of other players that were great, including Messi. And then he had an incredible Bayern Munich team that was the only team in the Bundesliga that mattered. Nobody was really competing with them, and so he won the league and the DFB Pokal, but he couldn't do it in Europe. He kept losing in the Champions League semifinals to Spanish opposition. Funnily enough. Funnily a word? Funnily enough. So we really didn't know how good he was as a manager, and I think we know, because he got third with a group of players that might be a little bit older and might not be capable of playing exactly the style that he wants, and he wants some defenders to play out of the back and have a lot of possession. They had more passes in the Premier League than any other team by far, and they had a goalkeeper that but still, if you're one of the best managers in the world, I think you do better with that group of players. Next up, Stoke City. The Potters epitomize what it means to be a mid-table club, as evidenced by their last 5 seasons where they finished 14th, 13th, 9th, and 9th. And even though they secured the talents of the Welsh Xavi, Joe Allen from Liverpool, which is going to help bolster their midfield overall and raise the games of guys around him like Mbula and Artonovic, without a top goal-scoring striker, it's not going to be enough for them to make a significant jump in the table. 11th. Damn it, they were 1 point away from 11th. They finished in 13th, but I was right. When 36-year-old Peter Crouch is your leading scorer with 7 goals, then it's pretty clear that you're lacking a big-time player up top. So that's definitely going to be a big need for them in the summer if they want to get back to the comfortable confines of 9th place. And who's up next? Oh, it's Crystal Palace. The good news, they got American owners. And American owners always do well in the Premier League, right? Because we know the Glazers of Manchester United and Stan Kroenke at Arsenal and John Henry at Liverpool and Randy Lerner at Aston Villa are loved by everyone. I mean, that's what they tell us over here. The bad news, Their top scorer last season only had 5 goals. Now granted, they had 4 players that had 5 goals, so that's like one player having 20. But if they want to get back to the FA Cup final and maybe sneak into the Europa League, they're going to need some help up top because what they currently have isn't enough. 10th. Okay, so they had a goal scorer finish above 5 goals, and that's a good thing. It was Christian Benteke. He had 15, but it wasn't enough to solve their problems like I thought that it would, and they finished in 14th. And that was due in large part to Big Sam Allardyce taking over for that joke of a manager named Alan Pardew, and he helped keep them up. He changed the culture just enough to save them from the drop. But whatever, 10th, 14th, they're both meaningless positions in the middle of the table. They're interchangeable, so I was kind of right? And up next, Everton. 3 seasons ago, they finished 5th, and the future was very bright, and there were unicorns and rainbows, and Roberto Martinez, the manager at the time, got rewarded with a 5-year contract, which in hindsight is always the kiss of death, and things went south fast as the team finished 11th in back-to-back seasons, which thankfully, for many fans' perspectives, got Roberto Martinez fired. Now cue this summer, where with new money and a long-term plan from owner Farhad Moshiri, they hired a new manager in Ronald Koeman, who did great at Southampton, and they hired a new director of football, Steve Walsh, who did great building the team at Leicester. However, as much as I love the moves that they're making off the field, on the field they still have some work to do to try to get everybody on the same page and inspired and wanting to play for Everton. So that's going to take some time for Koeman to figure out, maybe even a full season, but for this season, I'm going to say 8th. Ooh, I was so close! They finished in 7th. But I think a lot of the things I said were right. And with the full season under their belts, Koeman and Walsh should make the team even better next season if Lukaku stays. And that's a big if. Coming up next, the champs, Leicester City. For me, the Foxes winning the league last season could be the most miraculous sports story of my lifetime, but it won't happen again, especially after they sold the most important piece to the puzzle in N'Golo Kante to Chelsea. And Kante might not be the only one out the door because Riyad Mahrez, the reigning PFA Player of the Year, currently looks disinterested and wants a move or a new contract as well. In short, mo money, mo problems, and Leicester have some problems. Players want to leave. They're playing in the Champions League now, which always makes it harder to maintain the success that you had in the previous season, and they're the reigning champs, so no one's gonna take it easy on them. 9th. See, I had the right idea about them struggling this season, especially after they lost Conte, because Conte was the glue. He kept it all together. But what I didn't think would happen was Claudio Ranieri getting fired because of those struggles. That was unexpected. What wasn't unexpected though was them being bang average this season. Next up, West Brom. Honestly, I forgot they were still in the top division. That's how unassuming they are. And with Tony Pulis in charge of a team that no one really wants to play against, but no one really wants to play for either, unless you can't find another Premier League team that wants you, I assume they're gonna stay unassuming and finish 16th. I would like to take this moment to thank West Brom for only winning 1 game in the last 2.5 months of the season to try and get 16th place for me, but they finished in 10th on 45 points from 38 games, which, let's be honest, is probably the most unassuming position that you can finish in the table. And look who we have here. Swansea. By my math, since Wales did well in the Euros, then that means the only Welsh team in the top flight of English football should do well too! Until they sold Andre Ayew to West Ham, and Eder to Lille, and Alberto Polosi to Atalanta, and then loaned out Bafétimbi Gomis to Marseille. I mean, they are one of the few teams in the league that doesn't have any debt, and they're getting all this TV money in, so they should spend it! Or not, and finish 17th. Didn't it feel like they were pretty much in 17th all season under 3 different managers, including American Bob Bradley, who had the job for less than 3 months? But he didn't get a transfer window, and I didn't think that was fair. Personally, I felt like he got a little bit hosed. He might not have been the best fit anyway, but still. Anyway, the Swans finished in 15th, and that's close to 17th, right? So that should count. And now it's time to feel the burn. Lee. I'm sensing a trend here. 3 seasons ago, they came up from the championship. 2 seasons ago, they went back down to the championship. And last season, they're coming up from the championship again. But unless they can find some incredible team chemistry and sign Mahrez and Vardy and Conte, then I think the trend's gonna continue and they're gonna go straight back down. 19th. Okay, fine, I got Burnley, because I didn't predict that they were gonna have a good run of form from mid-October until the end of January, where they won 7 games, lost 7 games, and drew 1, which is pretty good for them. But most importantly, they got points off of people they were gonna compete against in the relegation zone, and that was key. And that gave them enough hope and belief and points to avoid the drop. Coming up next, West Ham. Being able to retain the services of Dimitri Payet after his spectacular year for both club and country is a big statement that the club has big ambitions, which is important for their on-the-field belief and for the belief of the fans in their new stadium. And with the big signing of striker Andre Ayew from Swansea, this could be a big season. Unfortunately, every top club in the league is getting better too, so 7th. Dimitri Payet doing well, Andre Ayew doing well, West Ham doing well overall. Just forget that I said any of those things. And West Ham supporters should probably try to forget this season as much as possible too, after their 11th place finish, which saw them 11 points away from the relegation zone and a whopping 30 points away from qualifying for Europe. It's just not good enough, fellas. And next up, Liverpool. With 8 months under his belt to get used to England and the league, which includes a summer transfer window and a proper preseason to make this club his, and you have to add in the fact that the Reds aren't playing in any European competition so they can focus on the league only, the happy German Jurgen Klopp is going to have his guys ready to go. So yes, I'm going to say it. They're going to finish 4th. Oh, so smart. I'm so smart. And now, Southampton. A great finish to the season, which saw the club qualify for the Europa League in 6th place, was followed by a summer of uncertainty as their much beloved manager left for Everton, and their 2 top attacking players, Sadio Mane and Pele, left the club for greener pastures, which means they're left with a new French manager, a few new players with big shoes to fill, and an enormous question mark over what they're capable of. 13th. Okay, wait, they finished in 8th, but that was a full 15 points behind 7th place, which was Everton, and only 2 points away from 13th. So this, I mean, there has to be some buffer where you guys are giving me there. Like, this should count. I've said this like 17 times already. I'm gonna make this number 18. I should have like a plus or minus of 2, especially in the middle of the table. Come on, you cherries! Bournemouth. The cherries were beset with injuries for a good portion of last season, and they still managed to secure safety in the top flight with weeks to spare, which is a testament to young manager Eddie Howe and his players' belief in his possession-based system. So with a finally healthy core and a few new signings, like the huge potential of Jordan Ibe from Liverpool and Lewis Cook from Leeds, who I think is going to be very good, they are going to finish better than they did last season, which was 16th. They're going to finish 12th. They were hanging around 12th all season, and then they just wanted to go out there and win 3 out of their last 5 games to finish in 9th, but I wasn't too far off. However, I was far off on Lewis Cook. He barely played, and Jordan Ibe, who didn't score once all season or have much of an impact at all. Didn't have an assist, didn't was he even there? Did he disappear? Where did he go?
Who has the answers?
It was Joshua King though. He was the guy. He stole the show. And now it's time for Big Sam Allardyce's former team, Sunderland. Maybe I'm biased because I want the Tyne-Wear Derby to exist again, and I know that Sunderland has a better chance of going down than Newcastle have of coming up. Or maybe I'm just a realist, and I know that Sunderland haven't made any new signings. They just hired a pragmatic and conservative coach in David Moyes, and they're going to have to rely on the heroics of an aging Jermaine Defoe to score these crazy-ass goals if they want to stay up, and it's just not going to happen again. It's just not going to happen. So in summation, they're going to be boring to watch, and they're going down. 18th. Outside of saying that they were going to finish in 18th when they really finished in 20th, this was easily the most spot-on prediction that I made in that whole entire video. Watford. A new summer comes and another manager goes as the Hornets make their 7th managerial change in the last 4 seasons. 7! But yet, despite that, they find themselves firmly entrenched in the Premier League with a solid core of talented players. So it's going to be up to their new manager, the Italian Walter Mazzarri, to make a lasting impact so he can stick around for a while. My main concern, however, is the players adapting to his 3-5-2 formation, which isn't a formation that generates much success in England. So I'll say he easily stays up this season, but makes more of an impact the season after. 14th. Despite Watford finishing 1 point away from 14th, there were a couple mistakes with my prediction. 1, that manager Walter Mazzarri would be around. He's not. And 2, that playing 3 in the back would not work in England. Once Chelsea and Arsenal made the switch, their seasons were much better. Up next, the team you love to hate, Chelsea. What I wouldn't do to be new Blues manager Antonio Conte right now. He inherits an underachieving team with underachieving players and 2 new high-quality signings in N'Golo Kante and Michy Batshuayi that even my 5-year-old daughter could get them to finish higher than the 10th place they did last season.
Keep calm and pass the ball to Conte.
I mean, they have so much talent that now has a legitimate chip on their shoulder after last season's performance, and then you add in the fact that they're not playing in any European competition, and I think this hunger to prove that they're one of the best is going to propel them, and they're going to finish third. My youngest daughter, in her whatever Texas accent, was right. Keep calm and pass the ball to Conte, because it's the new formula for winning the Premier League, and I never should have doubted her. I'm an idiot. Up next, the team that everybody hates to love, but they do it anyway, Arsenal. Where do you start with the Gunners? I'm not even really sure. I don't even really know where to start. Where do you go? How about the positives? They sink by rivals Spurs on the last day of the season to get second place, so that was awesome. And then they got a player with immense promise at the beginning of the transfer window who fills a need for them at defensive midfield, Granit Xhaka. So 2 for 2. The negatives, that's all the real business that they've done in this transfer window that's going to make a significant impact on their starting 11, which is a shame because if they truly want to win the league, when all the top clubs around them are making big moves to improve, they need to sign a world-class striker and a world-class center back. Otherwise, in what most likely will be Arsene Wenger's last year as manager, he's not going to go out with the bang that I'm sure he thinks he deserves. 5th. I might have missed Chelsea winning the league, which still bums me out because I rattled off a great list as to why they should and could do it. N'Golo Kante, they were hungry to prove themselves and they were not playing in Europe, which is super key, I think, in making that happen. But I didn't have the courage to name them as champs, which is a shame. But I did have the courage to name Arsenal as the 5th best team in England, and it happened. And who else had it? Oh yeah, that's right, no one. Genius status confirmed. Next up, the team that everyone loves to make fun of, Tottenham. They will never have a better chance to win the league than they did last year when all the top clubs were underperforming, only to find themselves underperforming during the stretch when they needed to show up the most, which allowed their rivals Arsenal to leapfrog them in the standings, which must have been a huge kick in the nuts. For this season though, they've kept their young and talented core intact. They know the style they want to play, which is going to give them a huge advantage over some of the other clubs, and they've added depth in key areas with the signings of Vincent Janssen and Victor Wanyama. However, they've also added the Champions League, which adds a layer of complexity to any team's season, and no one's going to underestimate them anymore after the season they had last year, and overall, the league is just better. So I hate to say this, Spurs fans, I really hate to say this, but you're going to finish 6th, so enjoy the Europa League next season. Again, I rattle off a list as to why they're gonna do well, and then I shortchange them as to where they're gonna finish. Why don't I listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth? So for me, this was my biggest miss of all of my predictions in this video because Spurs finished on 86 points, which would have put them on top of the league last season by 5 points. They scored more goals than anybody else. They gave up the least amount of goals. They had the best goal difference. They had the top scorer in the league. They had the best young midfielder in the league. And they beat Arsenal for the first time in what, like 50 gajillion years? It's also very impressive. And finally, Manchester United. They had needs, major needs. They needed a new manager so the players could hear a new voice and a new philosophy, and they got one with a chip on his shoulder, which is when he manages best. They needed a legit non-Falcao striker with world-class finishing ability that has won in every country that he's ever played in, and they got it. They needed to keep their world-class goalkeeper and add quality in the back and in midfield, and they did it all. And now they have everything to gain and nothing to lose, and with Leicester proving last season that anything is possible, then why not this? First. Yes, fine, I bought into the hype. I thought with the additions of proven winners Jose Mourinho and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, not to mention the treasure chest of money that they paid to get Paul Pogba, would be enough for them to make a legitimate run at the title, and I was wrong. Mainly because I didn't take into account that it seems to take players at least a year to learn how to fully function in Mourinho's world. So next season, for both Manchester clubs, should be a lot better. All right, that is it. That is all I got. So let me know your thoughts down below, mainly by acknowledging my genius. And I'll see you tomorrow. Later.